Hey, what is going on, YouTube? Hey, Aaron here. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. And guys, we are back in the Stalingrad, the epitome of heavy cruisers at Legendary tier here. And with the recent buff and addition of HE, the Stalingrad is quickly returning to one of my top played ships, and just a ship I have a lot of fun playing at Legendary tier. I heard your guys' feedback, or read it rather, in yesterday's video's comments, and I'm glad you guys liked that one. We are going to be doing more videos like that, but of course we're always do and kind of stick with the voiceover, style. And this is a perfect game that kind of epitomizes poor positioning on our friendly parts and just, putting your ship in a position to win even when your team necessarily doesn't want to do that. We actually have a special guest, as you can kind of see my reaction on screen here, as three of our middle ships all head towards one flank, and that flank, if you guys noticed, has two destroyers, and the third destroyer is actually heading towards that flank as well. Now, we do call for support, and he actually does turn around, but pay attention to where he goes. And as I was mentioning, we do actually have a special guest in this video, Mr. Airsoft Alphonse himself. We also have a viewer of the channel, Mr. Aussie Cactus, and he actually spawned on our flank. So we have basically a triple division on this side. What we do not have, however, is spotting. You can see that gearing did turn around, but if you would have went this way initially, or even up the middle, we would have had much better spots. Now you can see that we were actually on radar, and that is when the Conqueror pops up. You can tell, and I said this on stream, you can tell by the Conqueror's position that he knows at least the very basics of armor angling. He is angled away, as you can see a few of our salvos there actually bounced, while he got all guns on target. So at the very least, we know that that Conqueror has a few IQ points and to watch out for him. At which point we noticed that the cap was going red, and I initially thought it was either a Worcester or another radar cruiser in this game because of that initial radar, until Alphonse told me that he was spotted. So good team communication, at which point I popped my radar. Now, I don't normally recommend blindly popping your radar, especially if you're playing solo. You want to make sure you get a few shots on target, but because of our team communication, we absolutely abused this Kaba here, and I cheesed a little bit of that island, or he may have been dead there. So always getting the most out of your radar, and probably positioning a little bit better if you are a destroyer, being aware, because I was spotted of, the ships around you. So some good team focus fire here, and I get a little bit trolled with RNG. You can see a few of those went low, but because Alphonse is in the Colombo, he pushed forward a little bit. He actually did connect one or two secondaries there, and did get the close quarters on that Kaba. Unfortunately, he got cross-torped. And yeah, that was just an unfortunate spot. He put his ship in a decent position. It was just an unfortunate situation. And part of that situation is because this gearing decided to take a pleasure cruise over to the Bravo cap, at which point we did tell him to come support the Charlie side, and he did. And I will give him credit for that, but unfortunately, by the time he got back to the Charlie side, you can see that there is a Schlieffen rounding this corner, which is why previously, about 10 seconds ago in the video, I told him to get back, at which point he spammed negative. So just a lack of awareness and, positioning, and initial positioning and then overall awareness is definitely going to not, net you great results, as this gearing is quickly finding out sitting less than 6 kilometers in front of a Schlieffen, and there's also a radar cruiser on the left there. So just paying attention and trying to have a little bit more situational and map awareness is going to, net you much better results than having a 4-minute game, 3 of which he spent sailing around trying to pick a spawn to go to. So just look at initial destroyer position or placement, and then sail to the opposite side. Right, there were 2 destroyers, and this is partly Wargaming's fault. There were 2 destroyers on that right flank, and he sailed over there initially. And again, I'll give him credit for coming back, but if he would have initially sailed to sea, we probably could have gotten a little bit better position and overall awareness of where the other ships are or were, in this game. But that being said, that is now 2 ships gone for our flank and a third on the other side, and it is not looking great for our team. Unfortunately, because I am in the Stalingrad with a very large concealment and a very large turning circle, there's not really much I can do. So I just decided that I'm going to back up here and try and provide crossfire for the fellow comrade, Mr. Aussie Cactus, in the Burgoyne here. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to Mr. Aussie Cactus's position. He is the Burgoyne to my left there. He is angled out and kiting away, and I'm going to give that a positive or a plus grade. Why would I do that? Well, he is angling his armor, he is attracting damage, and he is drawing out the onslaught of enemies that are on his flank. You could see there was a Conqueror, a Kronstadt, and a Schlieffen there on this flank, all shooting at him. So instead of just rushing in or giving up broadside and dying, he is attracting this damage and setting up a little bit of a crossfire for me. So while some of the more, alpha Chad battleship players say that you have to be a man and rush in, that is the wrong play in this situation. As you can see, by allowing me to get this crossfire here, we just took a good chunk with a Citadel included of that Schlieffen's health. So a huge shout out to Mr. Aussie Cactus for allowing me to get this crossfire here and putting his boat in the right position. It's small plays that you will find yourself making, or these small tips and tricks that if you implement them in your games, which will probably help you, number one, win more games, but also number two, get better results and potentially put your team in spots to win, right? This is a low, this is not a glory play, what he's doing right now, but because he's attracting this damage and getting pummeled and doing his job in a battleship, it allows me to get these crossfires and defend the C cap in the process. You will notice that we actually did win the B flank, and we have not allowed the enemies to get the C cap, so we're actually ahead on capture points, and that is reflected in the score until Mr. Aussie Cactus goes down, at which point I am putting my ship in a position to kite. Going bow on to 3 enemies is probably not going to be the best, but if I can angle out while trying to avoid a citadel, then I could potentially defend this cap while drawing out 3 of these ships and preventing them from getting the cap in the process. I want you guys to pay attention to the friendlies over there on the Bravo cap. They did a fantastic job of securing the cap, as well as eliminating the few enemies that were over there. But now it is time to work their way back across, develop a little bit of a crossfire, and support the only comrade, me, on this Charlie side. Instead, what they decide to do is chase destroyers and battleships towards the top of the map, which is exactly what Mr. Aussie Cactus did for our side, and it is a losing play. So whatever team you're on, never chase kites. Don't chase them to the edge of the map. If you want to chase them a little bit and they're very low and you can get the kill, that's fine. But chasing them to the edge of the map, as our team decides to do here, is definitely not the play, especially when your team has lost the other side, which is honestly how most games go because players are not smart enough to divvy themselves up appropriately. And also Wargaming has a very poor spawn design on certain maps, which they say is supposed to create this, but I don't know why you would want to create that. It's very frustrating. Just, either steamrolling over 6-on-3 or being the 3 that is getting steamrolled. But because of our defensive position, we are able to kite and, again, take as little amount of damage as possible instead of just kind of sitting there bow on while these ships rush us. In between my blabberings there, we actually lost another friendly destroyer, which leaves us in a 5-on-4. We do have the cap, however, and they did not get Charlie, whether or not they wanted to capture it. I thought that Conquer would have went in it by now, but it looks like he's going back to defend his kind of weak side, so he's kind of helping his team out. However, our blue ships have not really worked their way out of the Bravo cap, which is fine. Again, we still have the points advantage, but if I would have not put my ship in this defensive position or angled as well or protected my health as well as I did, I could have went down and then they would have gotten the C and potentially won this game. So sometimes, I know it is not the masculine play, but sometimes by running you give your team a much better chance. It's kind of like when you're at midfield in football and you don't want to punt, you're at the 40-yard line and you don't really want to punt, but it's the good defensive play, and then you get a Pat McAfee type coffin corner kick and you pin them deep. So it's just one of those plays that's not the flashy or glamour play, but it puts your team in a position to win. Now, I'm going to be completely honest here. I thought, especially the Schlieffen, these ships would have followed me into the Delta cap and try and get this cap, but it looks like that they are now focused on the ships in the middle, which is, again, why you want to kite out. And another good example is, I think, part of the reason the Schlieffen didn't chase me is he was either, he took a bunch of fire damage, but he actually heals up like 20 more thousand health than what he was left with. So a good point and a good, tip is getting guns off the board. Some people think of it as kill stealing, but if, the battleship or whatever ship was in the middle here would have eliminated that Schlieffen, he's not able to get those heals off. So just something to keep in mind. Always try and eliminate low health ships, especially battleships that have been burned. As you can see, the Schlieffen's almost up to half health. We got him down to, I feel like, 10,000. He's now up to like 30. So just a good little side point, while we're talking about these strategies and, doing these voiceovers. But they actually decide to focus on these ships in the middle. and that is when we get access to their broadside. You will notice our damage was like at 120,000 just a moment ago, which is 2x our ship's HP, so a decent game, and we actually quadruple our HP. So by general rule of thumb, you always want to try and 1x or 1.5x your ship's HP, meaning the Stalingrad has 65,000 health. If you can get 90 or 100,000 health, you have done 1.5x your HP. But that is another 5 pens, and we actually get a few shatters, but that was the high caliber on the Schlieffen there. We get another salvo off quickly. We've already maxed our reload modification, and now with that first kill, we have a little bit of extra damage as well. If you notice, though, during that engagement, I was getting the Schlieffen off the board, our Salem went down. He was full health just a minute ago, and that is when I'm telling and signaling in Italian for our 2 ships to separate, right? Our Shima is right next to our Yamato, who has pushed across the middle, but it is too late in the game to be where he is. Being in the middle of a crossfire of torpedoes from the destroyers to the north, and now these ships on his west there, or his left towards the seaside, is just a terrible spot to put your ship. Now, the good news is he's still alive, which is causing this Kronstadt to focus on him instead of me. But because I put my ship in this position, we are able to get this crossfire. A lot of people are going to see this and say, oh, the Kronstadt's a paid actor. Instead of seeing the entirety of the game that I put my ship through to get to this spot. Now, of course, it has to do with the Yamato being alive. I am not naive of that, but it's a good lesson to some players. Just live, right? If you just live, I can handle the remainder of those, red teammates. Sometimes you'll see players go down in record time, and you're like, man, what did you do with your life? What did you do with 90,000 HP? But right now, we are just slightly angled with all guns on target, trying to get all of these ships off the board. And here is basically a free kill. The Yamato overmatched the Conqueror and got most of his health. But because of the strong heals of the Conqueror, we don't want him to get those off. So we're going to go ahead and take the kill secure, kill steal, whatever you want to call it, and tick over the 200,000 damage mark. That is when the Kronstadt decided that he doesn't want to sell broadside anymore. He's turning around. No idea why he would do a full turn, maybe to run away from the Shima. Not exactly sure, but regardless, we're going to go ahead and switch to the HE that the Stalingrad now has and just kind of riddle his deck and superstructure, trying to get a few pens potentially on the upper belt as well. But you can see that even with the strong and high caliber guns of the Stalingrad, no penetrations. And if you guys didn't know, HE can still shatter as we hit the turrets of the gun here. So you want to make sure you're aiming for upper belt superstructure. As you can see, a few of those did actually pen, and we get a few points of damage in terms of penetration damage instead of just relying solely on fire damage. And speaking of fire damage, we actually do get the permanent fire, which will kill the Kronstadt. We did load the AP, but I actually decided to shoot at the Yagumo, and pay attention to that because despite it being a low percentage shot, we line it up here, take a little bit off the lead as he is coming towards us, which is going to put, you want to aim lower, obviously, if a ship is coming towards you. You want to aim higher if it's going away from you. But we get 2 pens there, which are only going to do overpen damage because our caliber is over 280, but that's just another little thing that Wargaming should fix. And now, if you guys haven't already noticed, we are the last ship left alive. So throughout that entire ordeal, being on the weak side, getting focused, but because of our positioning and, kiting and, just repositioning, we are alive. Now, I'm not going to lie, I get a little bit greedy in this position. If you look at the score, we are well ahead. So I should have just turned and ran immediately, but because we saw that Yagumo was very close to us, and we can see that this cap is, the gearing is in that Bravo cap, we are pretty safe. We have 1 radar left. We decide to pop it. The Yagumo's in there. We take kind of a cheesy, shot where we throw the shells back and they connect beautifully. So if we had not taken that earlier salvo, which is why it is always, I always preach to take shots at destroyers. We kind of throw another shot at the gearing here, but here's also when I talked about the complete winning play was to run. We have a little bit of a brown pants moment coming up here very shortly, but that was, you could see I was on 4 kills, and I kind of wanted number 5 to get a nice little epic comeback cracking, and that is when the torpedoes pop up. Thank goodness they did not have range. We were well outside of the Yagumo's range. I'm pretty sure they were Yagumo torps. They could have been gearing, but they were fired from so long. They had to have been Yagumo because the spread wasn't as wide as the gearing would have been fired from, enough range for them to run out right there. But It's at that point we decide to run away, and we are actually going to hit 1,000 points kind of before the game ticks down to 0 here. But just a perfect game to help you guys, just think about your positioning, analyze your cruiser play, and it goes full circle, right? Because of our other teammates' decisions, there was not really much left for us to do than what we did. But as you can see, what we did resulted in a 3319 XP score with 4 kills and 228,000 damage. And you also notice Mr. Alphonse died pretty early on and still got a decent score. So by doing fulfilling your role, we won't talk about the gearing score, but by fulfilling your role and just kind of doing simple things, you can get yourself some pretty good XP. But that is all I have for you guys in this video. Again, if you enjoy this video, leave the video a like, comment, if you have something to say or add on, and make sure you guys are subscribed. It does help the channel grow. The growth has been insane. I really appreciate you guys. Hope you guys have a great day. Aaron out. Peace.